Hello everyone, this is day 7 of Watches and Wonders. Time is ticking, so let's dive straight into today's special program. Good morning and welcome to our final morning show of Watches and Wonders. I'm Olivia Chang. After 7 eventful days, we've decided to bring you an extra special program today. We'll show you the highlights, the best moments, as well as all the moments that you might have missed. So as we've been saying all week, make sure you make yourselves at home, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and enjoy the show. We start with a look at this week's highlights, with many gathered under one roof here at Watches and Wonders in Geneva.
Returning after a 3-year hiatus in live industries fairs, executives from 38 of the world's most prestigious watchmakers were thrilled to be back.
Yes, it was difficult years. The pandemic really turned things upside down, and I think it gave all of us time to pause and to reflect about what's really important.
Finally, we have come to this stage, the global arena of luxury watch brands, and it really means a lot for us.
The event came as the sector in Switzerland continued to bounce back to pre-pandemic levels in sales. That strength was evidenced by brands selling out of their watches well before the fair's closing day.
I do apologize to all customers that are waiting for our watches. The reason is because they're built by hands and not by robots.
Creativity, innovation, and sustainability were central themes here, with celebrities present to celebrate the Maison's latest moves and press for action.
I know the world has changed. I've seen polar bears drown. I've seen grizzly bears kill polar bears, and they never used to share the same space. We've got to be able to go out and explore and bring those messages back and motivate the brands.
We know that there is a countdown from the global deterioration of the environment. So we put ourselves under pressure.
Industry chiefs spoke of efforts to push technology to new boundaries.
Men have tried to reproduce the exact cycles of the universe and the planets into watches. However, the cycles are precise, but our measurement of time is not exactly matching these cycles. They create special challenge for the watchmakers.
We are at the verge of a decade that will surprise us with a lot of innovation in terms of science and in terms of way of interpreting a timepiece, probably at the level of the 70s.
With the next Watches and Wonders scheduled for 2023, there will be no better place to see the watchmaking decade unfurl than here.
Stay with us, we break this down further in just a moment. Delighted now to welcome Robertyan Breuer, founder of Fratello.com, here in the studio to get your recap of what we've just seen. 7 packed days of action. Just first of all, tell us how you're feeling. Optimistic, inspired, overwhelmed?
Exhausted.
Forgot about that.
Yes, but definitely inspired. It's good to be back. It's good that there's the comeback of a physical watch show. So I'm very happy to be here, and that I've seen so many watches and people that I haven't seen for such a long time.
Now, we just saw a really nice recap there of the past week. 7 days of action jam-packed in these 2 minutes.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway from that?
It's basically, watches for me are an emotional product, a thing. So it's very good that it's a physical show again, and you could see that also in the recap. It's all about people connecting, and you want to see the watches in the flesh, and you want to talk to the people what their stories are about these watches.
What is something in particular that you think people will be continuing to discuss even after the watch show in 2022?
Well, Mr. Schmidt in the recap already mentioned it. I think it's wait lists. The demand for watches is so high that in the past it was only for a few brands, that it was a crazy demand for certain watches, but now it seems to be like an industry-wide thing.
Now, Mr. Breuer, after we leave, I'm not sure when you're heading back home, but what's the fondest memory that you're going to be taking away and sharing with friends and family back home?
Well, I said I haven't seen so many people for the past few years in the flesh, so it was good to meet them again. But also during the pandemic, during the whole COVID situation, everything was digital. So I met a lot of new people digitally, and now I finally got the opportunity to shake their hands.
Well, sounds like a lot of networking, a lot of handshaking,
Yes.
and ultimately a great experience for you. So thank you so much for joining us here this morning.
Thank you.
Coming up, we find out how other journalists also experienced the 2022 edition. What caught your attention this week? What made a lasting impression on you? Well, we find out what two Euronews journalists had to say about this from their time here at the 2022 Watches and Wonders in Geneva.
Morning, Olivia.
Morning, David.
Good to see you.
And you.
Good to be back here in Geneva under the new name of Watches and Wonders. Some of the big themes that have been sticking out for us, things like technology, sustainability, innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. Those have been the big themes that I've been picking up on as well. So maybe we should go check out some things.
Olivia, you were actually chatting to the head of corporate sustainability here at Chopard. What were they telling you?
Yeah, I was actually really impressed to see how they've been getting involved in their supply chain to not just make sure that what they're sourcing has certifications and is responsible in some way, but bringing certain communities up to scratch to meet those certifications. I think it's a wonderful example of how watch brands can have a positive impact on the world.
It was interesting because I spoke to the CEO of H. Moser & C here in Geneva, and he was saying actually a lot of the sustainability stuff is being driven by their younger members of the team.
I think watches are really considered quite a sustainable purchase anyway. They're built to last. Most of these watches are made in Switzerland, but we're all realizing that we have to play our part and do something if we want to build back a better world post-pandemic. So we're here at the Hermès stand now in this amazing immersive art piece related to the watches that have been released.
As well as this big 180-degree screen you've got here, there are also 12 windows outside, and they're featuring basically 12 different immersive landscapes. And this has been created by an artist called Sabrina Ratte, who was commissioned by Hermès. For me, this really stood out as a great use of technology and immersive experiences.
So over the course of the pandemic, we weren't able to go into shops. So Baume & Mercier have created an augmented reality virtual try-on service for their Riviera watch. Shall I show you how it works?
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, so you just take out your phone.
Okay.
You can go onto the store. So we've got the Riviera watch. Virtual try-on, just click it like that. It's going to open the camera on your phone.
Yeah.
And then you can put your wrist underneath like this, and you'll see the watch appearing on your wrist.
Fantastic. So some real great tech coming out of the show this year.
Well, I think the themes that we've just been exploring, sustainability, digital and tech, there's still a long way to go with all of those things. This is really the start of the journey, but it's interesting to see quite a traditional industry embracing change post-pandemic and not being scared of it. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see how things go and develop over the next couple of years.
Stay with us. We put a spotlight on all the trends you need to know for 2022. Three familiar faces joining me today. They've been our panel of experts discussing the timepieces up close. But now today we're going to take a look at trends, and I'd like to welcome Carson Chan, Gianfranco Riccio, as well as Joanna Langer.
Good morning.
Now, after a week in Geneva, I've been seeing you every single day here in the studio this morning to go through the watches, and I've gotten to know you all a little bit better. I found out that you all love to disagree. I'm not sure if this banter is also off screen, and that you're all super multilingual. And I think Carson 係終於到我哋啦，係咪？
應該都係啦，因為佢哋呢成個禮拜講咗好耐嘢咧。
Carson, you forget that I was in Hong Kong for a while. I know what you're saying, and it's about our taste in watches, by the way.
Really?
See, you're all globetrotters, you all understand each other, but I think the common language here is watches. So that's what we're going to dive into today. I want to get a sense of the trend. Now, let's focus on aesthetics first. Was there really a dominant color this year that stood out?
Well, actually, I don't think we can say there was the color like we have been able to maybe in previous years, but there was definitely a lot of color, right? So, and it was great to see that the color extends not only from the dial, but also to the case. So we have different colored ceramics, different colored sapphire, so using different materials as well. So this was really what I found. And it's actually quite nice, I think, that color has found its place in high-end watchmaking. It's totally acceptable to have all this color.
And we need it after these periods. Everything is more colorful and even brighter color, very strong colors. And that gives a kind of joy of life, spirit, which you absolutely could see immediately in the first visits already.
I mean, when we talk about color, we're assuming just a single appearance on the dial. But as Joanna said, it's correct. Carrying it onto the case, and even brands are getting more creative with using gems to create this color, which makes it very refreshing, yet it's still able to show the technique, the way that they are, the workmanship that they have.
Yeah, and what about those fume dials also that we have? So really being able to see into the movement and colors, fume colors, smoke dials, gradient dials. So adding color with brands that we expected from perhaps, but also newer brands that we're seeing it for the first time.
And fume dials, which allows you to see in the movement, but even watches without any dial. So you truly could see the movement itself, and sometimes even colored movement that goes, to replace a little bit the dominant color this year, the skeleton or ability to see the movement.
Absolutely. I think when you mentioned skeleton, some of the models that we saw, the skeleton itself have decorations on it, whether it's a treatment to make a color or using a craftsmanship to do enamel onto the movement. So those are very, very interesting too.
It's really attention to bring the movement to life, right? Yeah. To really, well, it's great because we're appreciating all the work that has gone into these wonderful timepieces. Don't forget all the people that go into the craftsmen, the finishing, and the talent and time that this all takes. So it's great that this is coming into full view.
So they're not holding back. They really want to show off the inner workings of the watch as well. I mean, that's something that we've been discussing all week here, these skeleton dials. Now, we've looked at aesthetics. Let's talk about the complications themselves. I think there were many that were almost beckoning us to travel again.
Oh, yes. Yes. I think you see lots of complications showing up. Every year we see some of the familiar ones, and we see some that pops up some more. How do you...
You know what we do mostly the first 1 or 2 days? We are trying to spot out who made the craziest complication, who combined more complication in one single wristwatch until 5, 10 or even more. And we had that in the last years. Not this year. We saw many different crazy complications, the tourbillon flying in different directions counterclockwise, or combining different axes, or construction of movement in a rotor inside. We saw a few of them, but not the one which, everybody had to see immediately. That was a little bit different, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. And if we think about maybe one type of complication, we saw across the board, like you said, on all different types, few minute repeaters from tourbillons. But if we had to pick one, it's probably the travel time, right?
Yeah, the travel time in different ways to show a second time zone with 2 hour hands or with universal time. We spotted out a few of them, right? Yeah.
Quite a few, and it's particularly, I have a strong feeling for this because it took me a lot of effort to get here this year. So the travel time watches are using an existing way to interpret it or using a brand new way to interpret it. So this is something that definitely everybody should pay attention and look for.
Yeah, and we are all expecting to travel more, so it was welcomed as complication.
And as well as calendar complications, can you walk us through that, what we saw there this week?
Well, that's few. I was surprised to see even calendar complication in a smaller size. So really good for smaller wrists or for feminine looks with more aesthetic approach in the complication of calendar complication. That was a welcomed innovation.
I think calendar is it's one of the most easiest to understand complication, because you don't need to learn how to activate it. It is a function that is, once you put it on your wrist, it's automatically running. So this sometimes is the most welcomed functions for anyone, whether you're a watch geek or just someone who simply want to put a watch on and enjoy it. Yeah.
So now we have time for the very last trend, and I want to look specifically at design. I believe the key words here are sport chic.
Absolutely, sport chic, which is a trend which was introduced in the watch industry a long time ago in the 70s when gold raised the price. So watches had to find a solution and began to design stainless steel watches, and not having just the head of the watch and the lugs and the straps on it, but designing a watch which in one piece has the case, the bracelet, this kind of integration of bracelet in the case. We call it today sport chic because it was a stainless steel bracelet on a stainless steel case, and that many brands made it, and we have some icons there. And those brands which didn't have one, they designed it this year, or they increased their collection in this kind of watches.
I think it's really interesting to see the amount of what we call sport chic watches out there, and it's totally what you say. It's they're useful, of course, for our sporting lifestyle, but it's like the sport chic is evolving with the changing way that we're living, so the more dynamic lifestyle perhaps that we're having, that we want to be able to enjoy this watch, of course when we're out doing sports, but also perhaps we don't want to change it, so we can use the watch also during the week when we're in our everyday lives, and it's a watch that we can use all the time.
But I want to come back to what Gianfranco said, iconic. We are having many brands using their iconic models to bring back the sport chic. Integrated bracelet with a twist today, with a quick changing system. So you can still change it into something else. That's something that I also think it's a huge design angle. Yes,
absolutely, which made this sport and chic with the same watch. And by the way, even a little bit less technique on the sport chic watches, softly rounded shapes, which you can really wear with a suit. So that's, and by the way, even thinner watches,
of course,
with this trend together.
So Gianfranco, I know from what the others say that you're a bit of an outdoor person. You also love to go diving. Is it something that appeals to you in particular?
Obviously, you have one watch from the beach to the tuxedo, and that's, like Joanna just said, the sport chic. In every situation, we can jump from one world to the other one in a few minutes, still having the same watch at the wrist.
Well, that's all that we have time for.
But wait, Joanna, we should ask her, how much do you know now, after 1 week, about watches?
Let's say I know more than 7 days ago, and I've learned that sometimes you need a little bit of practice to tell the time. So I'll be working on that. Thank you so much for joining us all this week. Take care and have a great flight back home.
Thank you.
More to come, we bring you our special segment, What You Missed. It's time for us to take you inside time design.
The year is 2122. Our perception of time have changed. And the students at the Art and Design School, Head Geneva, have collaborated with Watches and Culture to really imagine how our perception of time will be and how we will measure that time 1 century from now. And so we have here 5 objects depicting 5 different concepts of how we are measuring time. Hacking time, inspired by George Orwell's novel 1984, takes this concept of how we have no control over our own time. So it's controlled by the system, by the society, and it takes the form of a Rubik's Cube. Hackers have found out the code of this Rubik's Cube, so the only way to find out real time now is to crack the code, and these numbers appear on the surface. By adding up the numbers, you find out the time. Fluid TD19 is an unconventional way to tell the time. You see these glass jars that are filled with a fluid, with a micro cell algae. And these are connected by an artificial heart. And as the heart beats, the algae changes its level to coincide with the passing of the hours and minutes. Multi-time clock represents 2 different time zones at once. We have 2 different balls on rails. You will notice the upper rail has a slightly more sharpened curve, so the time is progressing more quickly. This is representing time on Earth, whereas the lower rail with the ball, that's progressing slower, and that's time on the spaceship.
Coming right up, we take you once more inside Watches and Wonders, but this time from a very unexpected location. Throughout the week, we've been discovering every corner of the salon, but we admit we might have been a little bit secretive about our own production. So if you're wondering how we managed to bring you the live morning show every day here from the studio, well, here's how we did it.
Good morning, Olivia. Yeah, on this very last day of Watches and Wonders 2022, I want to take you on a backstage tour. Right now, I'm standing outside of Palexpo, and these 2 trucks that you can see here are essential that the show runs smoothly, because what we're broadcasting is not just done in English, but what I'm saying right now is being translated into Chinese. And our interpreters are actually sitting here in this car, and I'm actually just going to quickly say hi. 早上好，我就想非常感谢你们帮我们翻译，谢谢。谢谢. Okay, I'm going to leave them focus. Here on this side, we have the production. Take a look inside. We can see our director over there, Michael, with his staff. Of course, they need to focus, so I'm not going to disturb them any further. Let's go inside the studio. Come with me. Here we have Alec, who is going to open us the door. Thank you very much. And the sound engineers are here, making sure that we are actually heard. Now, shall we go inside the studio? Let's do it. Come, come. Here we are. And the light. You can see Olivia right there at the desk. Now, a perspective that you usually don't get to see is, of course, this one, where you see the camera operators backstage. And I would say, if I'm in the studio right now, why don't I just be the guest of Olivia?
Hey, well, Tanya, thanks for doing a full circle. I've always been seeing you on the screen, but it's great to finally have you in the studio.
Absolutely.
Now tell me about this adventure. You've been so busy this past week discovering every corner. What has this adventure been like for you?
It was great. It was really amazing, especially seeing so many people after such a long time without any events. And what I wanted to say is also, obviously we started very early in the morning and there were barely any people in the saloon yet, but I got the chance to actually show the spaces right before the storm. So when it was the calmest. And being live is exciting anyway, because it's all about this particular moment. I mean, right now, you either get it or not. And it reminds us that we cannot turn back the hands of time, no matter what watch you're wearing. So yes, it was great.
Well, thank you, Tanya, for joining us. We know you've been kept busy throughout this past week and a lot of action to digest for you.
Absolutely.
Maybe some sleep as well. Okay.
We all need that.
Now, more to come. We bring you the best and surprising moments of The Late Show. Now, we're now joined by a very special guest. You might recognize her, Ariane Alcorta. She's been presenting the evening show, Late Show, every day for us. Ariane, give us a glimpse into what you have been getting up to. Meanwhile, we just saw Tanya. She's been getting up super early every morning. You've been preparing for the Late Show. How's that been for you?
Yes, I was quite the opposite. I actually had to dodge people around, and people had to dodge me because, as you know, most of the time when I was on camera, I was in the middle of a busy hallway or a packed booth, and well, we all had to be careful not to bump into anybody or anything, especially my videographers. I think they had the hardest part, that's for sure, because as I was walking forward, they had to be walking steadily, while keeping my pace, and so at times we had 2 videographers, and then we had our light and audio expert, who also served the role of bodyguard, trying to keep them away from bumping into something very expensive.
Now, this is all the stuff that people, of course, don't actually see on camera, correct?
Exactly.
Now, I saw in the Late Show that you actually managed to catch a lot of very interesting personalities. Tell us more about that.
Yes. They all came from different fashion universes, and they were really knowledgeable about the latest trends in the watch world. And we explored so many topics, like, for example, how brands right now are using social media influencers to promote their brands, or how they are trying to get into the women's market right now, into the women's fashion market, and of course how they are planning to be more sustainable, how they are innovating sustainably, right? Well, and even of course, last but not least, how many young brands are immersing into these luxury watchmaking world. There's one brand here that is only 3 years old, so the youngest brand ever in the Watches and Wonders.
Now, final thoughts. You basically visited so many of the booths.
Correct.
What struck out to you?
I was completely speechless. I have to say, I was blown away by the creativity and effort that all of these brands put into representing their watches, right? All of the brands have a different theme. So, for example, I was in a booth that really did make you feel like you were diving in deep waters. And there was another booth that it was a dark capsule that had a spectacle of lights that made you feel like we were in the middle of a galaxy world, right? And that was the main theme. And then there was another one that really did make you feel the chills of a glacier because it was all decorated, and I mean, I was completely blown away.
Now, I know you can talk at length about this, and while you were busy, we actually created a little bit of a surprise for you.
Okay,
so
let's
take a look.
Okay.
Ready to go?
1, 2, and 3.
Welcome to the Watches and Wonders Late Show.
I'm Ariane Alcorta, and as usual, we're joined by a very special fashion guest. Spring of Garden from... I don't have my champagne, so I'm just going to cut it right there.
Love this. I wish I would have known. I spent like 2 hours yesterday trying to edit something like this to show everybody.
This makes for good memories, right?
Yes.
Something
I love it.
maybe you can show at your next family dinner?
Yes, of course. This is something that I want to share to everybody. And there was this shot where I was like, oh my God, please don't bump into that. That is exactly what I want to say.
Well, we have this file, so you can definitely take this after and
so
share
much.
it with everyone. Plenty more to come. We bring you the panel discussion of the day. Pascal Ravsud, delighted to have you with us on this very final day. You've had an incredibly busy week preparing all the panel discussions. Let's talk about yesterday. Can you digest the conversation that we had on evolving customer expectations?
Yes, first of all, the panel seems to be getting better by the day. It's so sad that we have to finish today. So yesterday, yes, we dived into evolving customers' expectation, and actually sustainability is actually becoming a lifestyle, and it comes from the younger generation. And since we've heard here that the customer base is getting younger and younger, well, you get a sense of what needs to be done.
Now, today we're going to be looking at circular economy. Tell our audience why they need to tune in at 1 p.m.
Because I think circular economy can really be a game changer in our industry. There's a little bit that has been done, and we're going to see that, and we're going to see what can be done to really take it to the next level.
Since we are nearing the end, maybe a look ahead. Maybe you haven't planned that far ahead. But for the next Watches and Wonders, any topics floating in your mind that you would love to touch on?
I think innovation, maybe sustainable innovations. Sustainability has been around the corner in each discussion every day, at every moment. And I think that's really, as I said, the whole week, time is now.
Well, I guess we have to catch up with you in a year's time to discover what might be on the table. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Olivia. It was a pleasure.
That's it for 2022. But remember, it's not a goodbye. We hope that you've all had a wonderful week, that you were surprised, entertained, and excited by what you saw at the 2022 Watches and Wonders. On our side, we had a great time bringing you the morning show every day, and a big thank you, of course, to you, our audience, for tuning in every morning. On that note, we would like to say take care, and we look forward to seeing you very, very soon.